Okay, and get rid of that. All right, I think we're about ready. Okay, 6 o'clock. We are up to Zoom number 6. Glad everybody could make it, and we'll get cracking right here. Just a quick reminder, as always, we try to keep everybody muted, but that does not mean that if you have a question, feel free. Chris, our number one chat box guy, is with us, and he will check that from time to time in case you have any questions in that regard. And we'll have an open mic at the end if you so choose to join us then. I have put the recording on, and there's our email if you need to get in touch. We're getting close to the end in regard to preseason prep, obviously. We only have two of these sessions left. That's the Open Championships in both divisions next week and the week after. As far as practices, or I should say, new officials trainings in the Phoenix area, one's coming up on Tuesday, and then the 17th of November. Also, a reminder that the transfer scrimmage is this week on coming Thursday at Brophy at 6 o'clock. Moving right along, it's time to go to the videotape. And just as a reminder, as always, the idea here is for betterment of officiating high school basketball and not to embarrass any official, coach, player, or institution. And it's kind of easy to do this with kudos. We do have a couple of learning situations tonight, but by and large, it's a lot of positive, good stuff in both games. So let's start off with the girls 6A state championship game with our crew, Ronnie, Richard, and Paul. See what they have for us. And I hope you're not getting sick of this, but one of the things that very important, especially for the new officials on the call, remember one of the secrets of being a good official and being accurate is to make sure that we get an open view. Also, for officials that are just learning crew of three, rotation is very important in regards to understanding that and the reason why we rotate. In this kudo, we have a good example of how the rotation helps our lead official get an open view, and as a result, he makes a correct call. That's what the CC stands for those of you that are joining us for the first time. So let's take a look. So our teaching points, and again, I think you've seen this graphic many times, but that's what we try not to get into. And right now, our lead official has that view. In other words, he can't see the basketball, and he's because he's straight line. And so, as we said, the idea behind rotation is to get over on ball side as much as possible and get away from the closed view and get to an open view. So in a second here, we're going to see that he is going to come across the lane. And once he gets across the lane right there, he's now has an open view and is going to be able to see that illegal contact. Kudo number two is another correct call dealing with an illegal screen. So I want to stop here for a couple of seconds and just review the screening rule because two aspects of it come into play on this. And that is in dealing with the screen, remember that the screener must make sure that their feet are no wider than the width of their shoulders. And the only exception is the interpretation changed a little bit. If the contact occurred on the torso, there's no problem. But if those wide feet come into play, then obviously that's illegal. That's an illegal screen. And secondly, if the screen is so-called blind, or it's out of the vision cone of the defending player, then time and distance come into play. And when we talk about time and distance, we're talking about one or two normal strides, depending on how fast the players are moving. And in this particular case, both of these come into effect. Wide stance right there, and no time of distance. So as a result, there's two strikes there, and our trail official makes a correct ruling for an illegal screen. Good job. Number three, another correct call, this time involving a player control foul. And if you recall, we advocate trying to run a mental checklist in your head in regard to what the defensive player can do and what they can't do. Remember, to obtain legal guarding position, there are basically three items that they must take care of. First of all, 2 feet on the playing court in the path of their opponent. They must be facing their opponent. Remember, it's a basketball facing. They don't have to be totally perpendicular. And they must get to that spot before the player leaves the floor. In this case, that last item is not an issue. So run your checklist. Hopefully you've already done so, but we'll stop it in just a second here. So first of all, there's the path that we can see here. So White has obtained legal guarding position. He's got 2 feet on the playing court before the defensive player left the floor. She's facing the opponent. So now the onus is on the player in the dark jersey. And as soon as, oh, I do want to talk about this. Sometimes we hear the expression, but she was moving, or she only has 1 foot on the floor. Remember, the player, once they have obtained legal guarding position, they may maintain by moving laterally or obliquely. And in this case, she moves laterally and maintains the legal guarding position in the path. And as a result, that's why this is a player control foul once there's torso to torso contact. Kudo number four is a free throw violation. Now, some of these clips I take off the National Federation network, and for some reason they were having big time technical difficulties. And you're going to see that it breaks up a little bit, but you're going to be able to see it well enough to understand what we're trying to get across here. So bear with me on that. In fact, I think almost the whole first half of this game was wiped out, and I'm glad I was taping up above, or we wouldn't have had anything for this game. Watch number 12 down here in the corner. And I'm going to run that back. I didn't put any because it's kind of, but just review for new officials, especially, just a reminder. Remember, players outside the arc are under the same restriction as the free thrower, meaning, once we get back to live action here, the reason for the two arrows, meaning that she can't cross the arc, just like the free thrower can't cross the free throw line until the ball hits the ring. And as a result, that's what happened here. She's crossed that arc, and our center official has made the correct call, and this is a free throw violation. This sometimes, especially in the lower grades, sometimes this becomes an issue, and they sometimes don't understand that particular rule. So. All right. This next one is is a real tough situation. We have a timeout and a foul almost exactly at the same time. The crew does a great job in dealing with this situation. And one of the things that make this so difficult is that we have a loose ball. And anytime we have a loose ball and a coach wants a timeout, that makes it even more difficult. So as you can see right here, the coach has leaned into our center official and requests a timeout. And a split second later, our lead official accurately and correctly uh, does signal for a foul, not a held ball. And that's one that we've been working on this fall and talking about in this situation. That just because it's a loose ball, that doesn't mean everything goes out the window. That in this case, we've got a hold situation. The catch, though, what happened first? And what's so good about this is that both officials come together quickly. As you can see, they don't even take 2 seconds. Quickly, the center lets them know that he's got the timeout before, and as a result, they're going to go with the timeout and they will rescind the foul. And again, the kudo goes for calling a foul if we hadn't had the timeout. Look at it one more time.
Jeff, if I can jump in right here, if you can hold
Sure.
it right there, I'm going to make a comment of two situations that I would write in my notes and talk to these officials after the game. Number one, the calling official's hold signal isn't clear enough to say that it's just a 1-1 or a two-shot foul. It appears like he might have an intentional foul. Now, I don't think he did, but the signal appears like he's got his arms together like he's calling a keep it going there, Jeff. Right? See? So that's number one. Make our signals clearer that that's not an intentional foul. And secondly, right here, when the two officials start to get together to discuss what they got, watch what the third official does. All right. Right now, we got two officials talking to each other, and we've got the third official going to get the ball, which means we don't have any of the six eyes on any of the players. So that ball is going to get to us somehow. Don't worry about a loose ball. Have that third official watching the players.
Perfect. Very good. All right, this one is a combination. It's a kudo for the backcourt violation ruling, and we can learn in regard to the uh, correct location for the throw-in. So as we can see here, black number 24, She jumps from the backcourt. That means that she has backcourt status. So even though she lands in the front court, it's where she took off from for your new officials. And as a result, she's caused a ball that had front court status to go from the front court to the back court and back to the front court. And that's the reason why this is a correct call. Well done. Now, the throw in. Remember, with our new designated spot throw-ins, we've got to really be thinking about this now. Remember that since the violation occurred in the back court, which is the new front court, that now we're going to need to go to the 28-foot line over here for the throw-in. All right, CUDA number 6, another correct call in regards to 5-second closely guarded situation. All right, I want to back this up just a second here. So well done in regards to giving the 5-second signal, and away we go. All right, another learning situation, again involving a loose ball. As we've talked about all fall, loose balls can be very challenging, and here's another one. And if you remember, I started the season off with a loose ball incorrect ruling. So we all do it. All right, in breaking it down. This is taken out of the case play. Again, this was a new interpretation either last year or the year before. They made it very clear that lying on the playing court is not considered a legal position. And that includes diving for the ball. Now, don't misunderstand. We can still dive for the ball, but remember that you still have responsibility for what happens if any contact ensues. So if there is contact, that inhibits the freedom of movement of that player or prevents them from performing their normal, basketball offensive or defensive maneuvers, then we have a foul. And if we come back to live action, you'll see what happens here is the legs have been taken right out from underneath that Jersey player. All right. John, how do we want to present this one? well,
Just
well,
what you got there, learning situation.
okay. Interesting situation. This is a little bit different than what a delay of game after a basket. I'll let it go, and then we'll talk about it. I probably should have put some graphics in. All right, there's one situation, and here's two. Now, what's different about this? Whoop, too far. No, I went too far. Bear with me. So the black jersey team has just scored. Normally, what we see in these situations, by the way, it's hard to see on the clock up there, but it's less than a minute in a very close ball game. And what we sometimes see is the defense that's behind, and they're trying to, set up a press or whatever it may be. And sometimes the defense that taps it away, the old defense. What we have here is the black jersey team that has just scored. Instead of taking I'm sorry, the white jersey team just scored. Instead of taking the ball out of bounds, she's going to tap it to the official, as you see right here, because that black team, black jersey team, they're ahead and they want that time to run down. So it's an interesting scenario. And they're going to do it twice within 20 seconds. That's once. I didn't separate them very well here, but this is the same situation. So you can see white has scored. Black could have taken the ball right there and taken it out of bounds, but elects to tap it away. Maybe I'm being too suspicious here, but I'm wondering if that is not a design play to buy a couple of seconds by tapping it to the official. They know we're going to just catch it and we're going to bounce it back to them. So it's something to think about. And I know John has some thoughts on this.
Well, I think the previous one, Ronnie did the exact correct thing, in my opinion. The ball was tapped to him, and as soon as it either hit his leg or he tapped it back, he started his count. And I think that's totally correct. And in this situation, I think the same thing should happen. If the dark jersey team taps it out of bounds, then once that ball gets out of bounds, our 5 second count should start.
Very good. All right. Number 8, another correct call. Dealing with on the back foul during rebounding. And again, the key here is verticality. Every player is entitled to a space on the floor that they get there first legally. The white jersey player has her boxed out, and there is her vertical plane. And black jersey number 34 is obviously going to displace her. And we can see that she's actually gone into and taken the space, the vertical space of what was once occupied by the white jersey player, and as a result has committed a foul, which was accurately ruled by our lead official. All right. To wrap things up with the girls' game, there are several situations regarding a point of emphasis here. A point of emphasis, or one point of emphasis this year, deals with making sure that we're accurate on the throw-in in the regards to the location. And that comes in conjunction with remembering that the rest of the country is using the three-point arc, like we did last year, as a means of determining where the throw-in is. And also the new rule that there now are, there were last year, remember, there were 4 designated spots in the front court, and now they've also included them in the back court, so we now have 8. We have 4 at 3 feet just outside of each lane line, and then of course we have 4 at the 4 28-foot lines. So again, remember we do this for educational purposes and just a reminder, a refresher, and that's why we call it rekindling our basketball minds here in the fall, getting ready for the season, especially with scrimmage week coming up this week. So there are several situations here. So you can see we have a good foul ruling here called in the lane. And obviously if it's in the lane, then we should have our throw-in should be at the 3-foot applicable throw-in spot. And you're going to see that word applicable in many of the case plays now to describe either the 3-foot spot or the 28-foot spot. One thing I would add is that to help the situation, Sometimes the calling official, especially in a situation with a foul, remember they've got to worry about color, number, what the foul was, and what's going to happen next. So the partners in this can help in knowing where the situation occurred, where the foul occurred. In this case, like in the lane, we've got one coming up where we're going to have a travel in the lane, and they can help get the play set up in the correct location. This is going to be the traveling one. Occurs in the lane, so just like the last one, throw in probably should come over here on the near 3 foot line.
Jeff, can I jump in here for a second?
Absolutely.
Utilizing this court as an example, we don't have any of the 8 marking spots on the floor, so we've got to know where they are without using that mark. So we got state champions or state underneath each basket. So if I'm working this game, I'm going to put the ball in play right to the right of the E in state, and we got to remember that the top of the circle is 25 feet. So we got one step more if we're going to give it to the team on a sideline. So many of our gyms are not going to have those lines.
That's for sure. All right. This next one involves a timeout situation. A couple of things to note here. We'll cover them as we get to them. So here's the timeout requested right over here by this coach. We can see it's in the front court. And obviously, then what we should discuss before we report is where the throw-in is going to occur, which it takes place right here. Good job. Location where we'll resume will be at the 28-foot line in their front court. The catch here is to remember when they come out. Now, one other suggestion. Again, this doesn't have anything to do with location, but one other thing. You notice that our official is already reporting the timeout, and we have players that are still going back to their benches. There's no issue here right now, but if we were in the first half where we would have teams that were crossing, it might be a good idea to have this official wait, make sure that everything is okay, and also right now make sure that they get their full 30 or their full 60, because right now, once he's going to say start the clock, they aren't really back to their bench. So again, a picky little thing, but something that's important. All right, so we're going to go to the timeout. And now we're going to come out of the timeout, and I'm not sure what happens here. For some reason, they are going to put it in the back court, which obviously is incorrect. That throw-in needed to be in the front court. So that's it for the girls. I'm gonna take a break here. I gotta change tonight because I had a little glitch here with the so I gotta stop the screen share. And I gotta go get, no, we can't do that. All right, bring that back up. Go back to the beginning. And we'll get to the boys. Before we do that though, Chris, anything in the chat box?
No, no questions in the chat box.
Okay. All right, on to the 6A boys with Andy, Larry, and Tim. See what they have for us. I'm going to start right off with correct call on the travel. They're going to have several travel situations. First one is a good one to learn from. I got to get rid of that. So it's kind of difficult with this camera angle, but what's happened here is white number 12, you can't really see his leg, but he's obviously got to have one leg on the floor because this other leg is just coming down. So his left foot is his pivot foot. I said, yeah, I got that right. It's his drill with his left foot on the, he got that, I think I got that worded wrong. Yeah, there we go. So he jumps off and now he's going to land. Now he lifts that pivot foot, which is okay up to this point. Perfectly fine, perfectly legal, not a problem. But we've got to stay focused in regard to making sure that now he's going to release the ball before he puts that foot back down. And then when we get back to live action, we're going to see that he has to put it down to gain his balance. And as a result, our center official is right jolly on the spot with a correct call. All right, kudo number two. Again, another example of the open view, and this one is very, very subtle, but an important little shuffle, a little significant position adjustment. Maintain the open view, and for you new officials, this is something that you need to work on, making sure that you get that open view as often as possible. Can't do it all the time, but at least give it an effort like our official does here. That's Larry over there in the center position. Little shuffle step to the side. And there's a key. This is his view from our graphic up here on the right. Right now, he's looking through the back of number 4. Now, granted, there's some distance there, but if that defensive player was a little bit closer or he started to reach out, Larry would have a difficult time being able to make, it would be basically a 50-50 ruling. So he does what needs to be happen. He doesn't accept a straight line position. And as we get back to live action, you can see he just takes one little sidestep, big sidestep, and gets to a good look. Now, what's really good about this, and you can't really teach this, it has to be habitual. Just like when you get into your car, all of the routine things that you do to get that car moving and rolling and what have you. The same thing happens here. And we just lucked out that we've got Larry in 3 different situations, and he's very typical here on making a habitual attempt to get to an open view. So let's take a look at what he does here. As you can see, it's on the other end of the court. Also, please note the time here. And I'll explain why I make that mention in just a second. It's going to look very similar. Again, another little step. And then again, note the time here. And I put on here on purpose. This is not an instant replay. This is what I mean by habitual. That obviously it's in his instinct that he's not going to accept the straight line. And this time he's going to take a couple more steps to get out of that straight line position. So hopefully that makes sense, especially for the new officials. All right, kudo number 3. Again, for new folks on the call, NCC, no call correct. And again, I know I've said this in many sessions this fall, but it's important to understand these are just as important, if not more so, because they go unrecognized because there's no whistle involved. But we need to single them out to make sure that we understand the concept. So we have a potential travel. I'd be willing to bet there are a lot of boo birds in the stands that were screaming and hollering for a travel on this. So just to understand, there's basically the the word ruling in regard to traveling. And again, remember, it's dealing with the fact that they have to have control of the ball and go beyond the limits. And when we get back to live action, you'll see that he's going to lose control right there. And once he loses control, he can take several steps, and that's not a travel. He can take the steps to regain control, but while he's batting the ball back and forth, and you can see he went, quite a distance there, and probably Grammy is hollering for a travel, but that's not a crew. And remember, this is a crew kudo because nobody in the crew fell for, if they heard anybody say travel, they know the rule because there's no control. Good job. Well, you have to remember that sometimes players look awkward, and to the untrained eyes, awkward plays sometimes get called travel and they shouldn't. Nice job. All right, another travel situation, and this one is a correct call. Just that little hop step, a huge advantage, however. So we can see white number three, he ends his dribble while in the air and he lands on his left foot first. That makes that the pivot foot. So again, that's what we talk about is find the pivot foot. If you can find the pivot foot, you'll be a good travel ruling official, whether it was or whether it wasn't. So we've got a left pivot foot, and if we stay with it, we see that he's just going to take a little hop with that left foot prior to releasing the ball on a pass, a shot, and as a result, we have a correct travel ruling. All right, this one I love. We talk about, you hear, well, was the crew consistent? Were they all on the same page? Interestingly enough, that we're going to have three correct calls here on hand checking fouls. And the good news about all of this is not only is it a point of emphasis this year, but each individual on this crew is going to have one of the hand checks. That tells you that they are in tune. I got a suspicion that they probably covered this in their pregame. They might have even talked about it at halftime because you're going to see the first one is going to take place here in the second quarter, but it's going to be throughout the game, which is really good, consistent. Let's take a look. All right. To review, since since we're talking about hand checking, and what's going to happen is the other interesting thing is there are four situations in four aspects of the hand checking rule. And just like the fact that all three are going to have one of these. And the first one here is contacting the ball handler more than once with either hand. And the first two are going to come into play when we get back to live action. But let's break down the first one. So one hand on, second hand on, and in this case, he's going to put a third hand on, and our official does an excellent job of making a correct call. This is a hand checking foul. Now, for new officials, you may say, "Well, that was pretty innocent. That was no big deal." Well, you got to understand the history behind the hand checking rule. And it was way back in about 2012, 13, 14, somewhere in that neighborhood, where the idea of these using your hands to gain an advantage, that was always in the rule. But we as a group of officials didn't do a very good job of it. So the rules committee back at that time decided, okay, we're going to spell it out, those four things that you just saw on the screen. And it doesn't have anything to do, sometimes we talk about rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness when we talk about fouls. But they've taken that out of this when it involves hand checking. So even though there was no rhythm, speed, balance, or quickness affected by this, because the rule was clearly stated, as you saw in item C, then our center official, Larry, is correct in making that ruling. And as the other two will do on the next two, which are coming up. Now this one's going to be two hands on. So if you saw on the list that I had, one of the items, one of the four was when a player puts two hands on, that also is against the hand checking rule. And this one does affect the balance a little bit, so it makes it a little bit easier, but it's still, our official does a good job of giving the hand checking signal and makes the ruling. And you can see now we're in the fourth quarter and we're still going to have concern in regards to hand checking. Evidently, they haven't got the message, but our officials are still on it. So in this case, it's one where the hand that's going to stay on, and a hand that stays on is the third aspect. And once our official, as you can see, he's leaning in to get that open view. He sees that the hand stays on and is going to make a hand checking foul ruling. Great job by the crew. All right, number 7. This, for new officials, this is going to happen to you. There are going to be instances, especially when you have a ball that goes over one of your boundary lines and it's a long ways away. This one's going to be way down in the corner of the end line. You're going to have to ask for help. And this is a great example of how that's done. You can see it's a quick kick out. There's no way he could see. He was straight line through no fault of his own. And the teaching point is going to be the key coming up here. All our lead is going to do immediately, he doesn't know what it is, so we can see all he's going to do, one word, nice big booming voice, help. Makes eye contact with his partner here, and watch what his partner is going to do. Andy. He's now going to act just as if it went over his line. He's going to emphatically blow the whistle and give the direction and announce the color. Exactly what needed to be done. Number 8, another correct call dealing with a player control foul. Hopefully you are running your checklist right now. Did the player obtain legal guarding position? There's our checklist. 2 feet on the playing court, in the path of the opponent, facing. And obviously he's there before because we don't have an airborne shooter. So it looks like all the boxes have been checked. So now the onus is on our ball handler here for any illegal contact. Obviously he's going so fast that he's going to plow right through torso to torso. Correct player control ruling and a textbook signal. Unfortunately, I got cut off, but on my screen, I could see that he stopped the clock. You can see behind the head, and he gives the 4 fingers, not the fist. It's not a punch. It's 4-finger directional signal. That's what it should look like. All right, just like all of us, there are some learning situations in any game that we do. In this case, what we have is a no call incorrect. And again, it's involving travel. There are a lot of travel situations in this game. And this is becoming a standard type of shot, thanks to Caitlin Clark. So again, the trick here is make sure we find the pivot foot. As we can see, what happens is he ends his dribble with his right foot on the floor. That makes that foot the pivot foot. So if we can identify the pivot foot, they obviously can lift it. He's going to jump backwards or sideways a little bit, lift that right pivot foot, but then puts it back on the floor. That's where we have the travel. Situation number 2 is another common technique. There actually might be 2 on this one, but the first one's so quick that you could probably say, well, we might be splitting hairs. All right, so what happens here is black number 13 establishes his left foot as the pivot foot. Remember, the rule also says that you cannot lift the pivot foot before starting the dribble. So this one, you got to identify the pivot foot and also be able to see the ball to see when it is starting as a dribble. This one, it's really close. Plus, you can't really see the ball. So you're probably going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. But then we have another situation where he ends the dribble with both feet on the floor. Again, it's really close. Don't split hairs. At this particular point, either foot becomes the pivot. But this is where you want to focus in, because just as soon as he picks one up, like right there, okay, that makes the other one the pivot foot. So the right foot is the pivot foot. He's going to lift that, and then he's going to put it back down on the floor, and as a result, we have a traveling violation. Another learning situation, another tough one, on the back versus being put on the back. So as you can see here, black 13 has wrapped his, I guess that's his left arm, I got that wrong, his, his left arm around the waist of his opponent, which restricts his movement. And so you have a possible foul there. And to make matters worse, he's going to throw his hip. As you can see, he throws his hip and shoulder into white 14, has moved him, displaced him away from his vertical space. So he's been what we call being put on the back as opposed to jumping on the back. And with that, that concludes all that I have. So I'm going to stop my screen share here and go to Chris first, I guess, to see if we have anything in the chat box.
No, sir. No questions in the chat box tonight.
Okay, quiet group. We will open up the mics because we got some time. If anybody wants to ask any question about anything tonight or anything upcoming this week or anything that's you've seen on television, how the college game is going.
Hey Jeff, this is Jim Hobby.
Yep.
I'm a transfer in. I kind of missed probably the first 25 minutes of this meeting. Is there a way I can go back and try to view
Yes.
some of this?
Yes, you should receive tomorrow from the AIA office. You'll actually get a memo that will contain a link to this that's on the AIA website. Do you have did you, no, you probably didn't if you didn't see the first one.
No, I missed the first one. I didn't know about it. So
Here's the thing, actually, go to your regular dashboard where you go to get your assignments, and you'll see one of the buttons on there will say basketball officials. I think it says videos or something to that effect, and click on that. And I put this up tonight, and it will be on there, and then the link will come out tomorrow. But if you don't get the link in the email, you can actually access it from the dashboard.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Another thing, do we have to sign in for these meetings?
Do you have to sign up for them? No.
No, sign in. Is there like a
Oh,
sign in?
no, if actually what I would suggest, Chris Jeffrey does take attendance. Okay, it's unofficial, but if you do want to get credit, I would suggest putting your full name in, because obviously there are a lot of gyms. So if you put your full name in there, then it will be recorded as such. And I know Chris is listening now, so
Yeah.
Chris can make that adjustment, right?
Yeah.
Also, one other thing, Jim, one thing that I did cover, you're aware of you said you were a transfer, so you're aware of the transfer scrimmage at Brophy this Thursday?
Yes, I will have all my uniforms and my Arizona uniforms, and I will be at that meeting at 5:30.
Perfect, excellent. Because that was one of the things I did mention. Yep,
Okay, yeah, I know about that, and I'll be at Brophy at 5:30.
sounds good.
I'll probably be a little early because I got to find
Early,
where
early
to
is
go.
early is good.
Yeah. Well, if you're not early, you're late.
That's right.
All right.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Jeff, Dave Hawley from KN. I missed some live ones, but I've been catching the recordings, and I enjoy that, Jeff. Quick question. The
Yep.
tip signal, it's okay to go back court and get the ball for offense. If the ball is center side and the center is right in front of him, he sees it hit defense and it start going back. And I can have the tip signal if I'm center. And the other two-part question is, Jeff and others, would trail, even if they weren't sure about it, would they ever mirror a tip signal?
Well, if I understood your question correctly, normally the tip signal would come from the but the way I interpret your question is there might be a situation where the ball was obscured from the trail, but you as the center clearly saw the tip. Clearly saw that the ball was tipped by the defensive team, and as a result, that's exactly what the tip signal is for. Is that you can give that signal to indicate to the trail official who, 90 plus percent of the time is going to make the backcourt violation. But if he sees you give the tip signal, he'll know that, all bets are off and everything's okay. Let's play on. Did I understand your question correctly?
Yeah, like, the defender tips it and it was like right in front of us, and, the trail's eyes are somewhere else. He's watching.
Right. That's what it's for.
Yeah, there's no need to
That's a
mirror.
method of communication. John White?
There's no need to mirror as the trail.
Oh, is that what he asked? I didn't hear that part. Thank you, John, for being my ears. No, there's no need to mirror if that's the question. One tip signal is enough. That's good.
Hello,
Anybody?
Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yep. Kirk?
Hi, this is Kirk Rothermel. I am also a transfer. I was going to follow up on Jim's question or the discussion about the scrimmage. And I know probably what this answer is, but do we need to bring our uniform with us and then we'll change there like we did in Missouri, where I came from, or is that correct?
Can somebody, John McDonald, John White, or
You can do either. You can come either dressed if you like, or you can bring your bag with your clothes, and there's plenty of places to change at Brophy. Either or.
What do most people
But-
do? What do
but
most people do?
But the scrimmage is full uniform.
Well, yeah, I know, to work the scrimmage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wondered, do most people bring their stuff, or they just wear it to the
It's
scrimmage?
mixed. It's mixed,
Okay.
Kurt. Some people wear their pants and then they just throw a shirt on.
Okay.
So there is locker rooms to change if you need be, though.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, our system is just a simple little countdown, going once, going twice. Thank you, everybody. Again, next week we go to the copper um, kudos and look forward to seeing you then. If not, you can check them out online. Very good. Have a great week.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jeff.
John.
Appreciate it.